In 1974, a team of scientists gathered at the Arecibo Radio Telescope in Puerto Rico. Their goal was simple: send a message from the Earth into deep space. Their message, however, wasn't an ordinary broadcast. It contained the genetic code of humans, a stick figure representing a human being, and information that pointed directly back to the Earth. That signal, however, didn't just stop once it left our solar system. It kept going further. In fact, right now, it's racing through the space roughly 52 light years away from the Earth on its journey through the cosmos. For over half a century since then, we've been actively shouting into space, assuming the universe is either a giant empty desert or a neighborhood full of friends we haven't met yet. But what if the silence isn't because nobody is out there, but because everybody is really good at hiding? In 1950, the physicist Enrico Fermi was having lunch with his colleagues when he asked a simple question. If intelligent life is so likely to exist out there, where is everybody? This became known as the Fermi paradox, and it has never been satisfactorily answered. But one of the creepiest explanations for the Fermi paradox is the dark forest theory, an idea popularized by the sci-fi author Liu Cixin in his novel called The Three-Body Problem. And the theory he described in his novel has since escaped the pages of science fiction and made its way into the conversations of actual physicists and astrobiologists, because the logic, as uncomfortable as it is nearly impossible to argue with. The dark forest theory begins with two simple observations about any civilization in the universe. Two rules that Liu Cixin calls axioms. The first is survival. Every civilization wants to continue existing. The second axiom is that resources are finite. Even in a universe containing hundreds of billions of galaxies, usable matter, energy, and habitable space are limited, and any growing civilization will eventually need more of them. Put those two ideas together and a problem emerges. If survival is your highest priority and resources are limited, then any other civilization becomes a potential competitor. And even if you do find a civilization that appears to be friendly, how do you know they'll stay that way? You don't know what their values are, you don't know what they'll do when they're desperate, and you don't know if they're telling the truth. And by the time you find out, it may already be too late. Liu Cixin calls this the chain of suspicion, and once you understand it, the logic becomes brutal. Imagine you're alone in a dark forest. Somewhere nearby, you hear footsteps. You have no idea who is out there. You don't know whether they're armed or not, whether they're friendly or hostile, and maybe they don't even know that you're there. You could call them out and try to make contact. Maybe they'll answer and wave back, and everything turns out fine. But maybe they don't. Maybe they're hostile, and the moment they spot you, they shoot. The stakes are absolute. If they shoot first, you die. And if you shoot first, you survive. In that situation, uncertainty becomes dangerous. The cold, rational, and self-centered choice is obvious. Eliminate the threat before it can eliminate you. Not because you're evil or aggressive, but simply because you can't afford to be wrong. According to the dark forest theory, this is the fundamental logic of the universe. Every advanced civilization, no matter how peaceful and enlightened, eventually arrives at the same conclusion. Every civilization is a hunter moving through the trees, silent, armed, and constantly watching. And any civilization that reveals its location is making a fatal mistake, because the moment another hunter hears you, you become a threat, and in the dark forest, threats get eliminated. Which brings us back to the Arecibo Message and our leaking radio waves. We've been leaking radio signals into outer space ever since the first radio signal was sent across the Atlantic in 1895. We even took it a step further. Just 3 years after the Arecibo Message, we launched the Voyager Golden Record, a gold-plated time capsule filled with sound, images, greetings, and direction back to the Earth. To a dark forest theorist, that isn't a beautiful message of peace. It's a suicide note. Now, to be fair, the dark forest theory isn't the only explanation of the Fermi paradox, and there are some serious objections against it. The biggest one is what scientists called the Great Filter. The idea that there is some bottleneck in the development of life that very few civilizations ever managed to pass. If that filter lies somewhere in the transition from single-celled organism to complex life, then the existence of intelligent civilization might actually be rare, and we might genuinely be alone in the universe. Another objection is that the dark forest theory assumes scarcity, but a truly advanced civilization may find ways around resource limitation that we can't even imagine. If you can harness the full energy output of a star or convert matter directly into energy, perhaps competition becomes irrelevant. Some others argue that cooperation and not elimination is the most stable strategy. Any civilization advanced enough to cross the stars has probably evolved beyond the desire to destroy every stranger it encounters. And then there's massive irony at the heart of the theory. To remain perfectly hidden, an alien civilization would have to stay completely silent. No powerful radio signal, no giant megastructure, and no large-scale expansion. They would need to actively suppress their own presence. By trying to blend into the background forever, they may be choosing a slow decline to simply avoid conflict. In other words, a slow, quiet death. If the dark forest theory is correct, humanity is currently behaving like the loudest, clumsiest toddler in the woods. We are lighting flares and shouting at the top of our lungs. But maybe that's our greatest strength. By being too loud to ignore, we are forcing the universe to deal with us. We are gambling on the idea that a simple, honest hello can actually break the chain of suspicion. Is it risky? Absolutely. Is it lonely being the only one stalking? Definitely. But in a universe that might be full of hunters hiding in the shadows, choosing to be a light, even a tiny, flickering one, might be the ultimate act of rebellion. So keep broadcasting, keep looking up, and as always, thanks for watching.